Well, thank you, John, Mishi, and all of the rest who have helped to make this evening possible for me to come here. I appreciate it so much. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks to the Three Jewels board and everybody who, there's so much work always that goes into one of these events, and I am the lucky one who just gets to come here and gets to talk, and I don't have to really work at all. So I'm really thrilled to be back. It's in a sense, the one person that it seems strange to see the simple absence of here is Shadi.
So watching.
Is she? Oh, cool. Hi, Shadi, because it was after the first day of a workshop here last year, at about this time, I think it was in the fall, right? And Shadi and I don't know who else had the idea that we should do a retreat based on that material. And that then turned into an idea that turned into 3 retreats, well, 4 retreats, and by this time 5 retreats before we get just on Shamatha. So she saw something in the potential of this material that has really, people have responded to, and those of you who, so part of the reason that it feels like I'm among such good friends here is because the weekend is a very powerful, intimate experience, but the retreat is really an intense, powerful, intimate experience. And yeah, so I feel like we just have really great friendships here that I'm thrilled to be back to talk about the next phase of this project. And then just before I forget, I am really thrilled that we will have a chance to develop more intimate, powerful, deep friendships over the course of 10 days next February, beginning February 15th. So I'm sure that over the course of the weekend we will be having more information for you about that. And I just suggest that you sign up early for that, because it will be, again, a very small group, and it's limited space. So, and it will be a really extraordinary. You'll know what I'm talking about at the end of this weekend, about what a powerful practice the potential is here if you really devote yourself to 17 Gatikas a day about this subject matter. So what we're going to be doing tonight is a review of the first stage of Shamatha practice. So we'll be going, for those of you who remember, we'll be going through basically how to develop stability. And then tomorrow we'll be talking about the other part of the practice, which is settling the mind in its natural state, and how that fits so intimately into the Vipassana practice. So first of all, the Shamatha practice that we're reviewing is all about, it's a system of practice that the Buddha taught and has been developed over the course of 2,500 years, 100 generations of meditators, which is typically translated as the English term quiescence. So Shamatha is a Sanskrit term, and quiescence, the English term, sometimes also called calm abiding, or quietude also. But the whole point of Shamatha practice is to develop a quality of your attention. So you are, in the terms that Alan Wallace uses, you are developing the contemplative technology. And so you could say that you are developing the microscope the laboratory instruments, and you're really refining those. So it's, almost like going to the gym or something like that, in a sense, and really getting strong and fit, and then game day comes, and you're using that strength and fitness and agility to do other things. You're playing a different game. So the untrained mind, so what we're doing is training our mind by developing this contemplative technology. And the untrained mind, you could say, is a multitasker that is continually oscillating between its two jobs of the untrained mind, which is distraction and dullness, or boredom and restlessness. So it's, this seems to be the job of the untrained mind, to continually be excited or continually to be falling asleep and bored with your situation. So what we are trying to do with our mental training is to train the mind to, and what's happening in the excitation part of the dullness, or the excitation or distraction. Excitation, there's actually a bit of a technical distinction between the two, where excitation is continually obsessing either about the past or fantasizing about the future. And these are usually, with excitation, it's always a desirous object that is taking us off on this journey. And then distraction can include anxiety. But from the point of someone who has made progress in Shamatha, and those of you who have been availing yourself of the great program that you have created here at 3 Jewels, where going to the classes, going to the community practice days, etc., you have been, because of that, really beginning to make some progress in the stability of your attention and the clarity of your attention. Even from that perspective of a bit of progress, you can see that what the rest of us have been doing is actively training ourselves to have an attention deficit. And so, this is because this is what our culture, in 2013, our global culture is really training us and instructing us to do. And I won't go into it because I don't have a great deal of time tonight, so I'll spare you the harangue about multitasking. But you can see Awakening Journal for if you're missing a harangue, because this is what. But it's helpful, I think, to realize exactly what we're up against, and what educators and parents have been noticing in the last 5 years. Everyone is very concerned about it, because it seems like it's similar to the situation with global warming, in that by the time we recognize the problem, it may already be too late to do much about it, or there's the anxiety, the concern that this could be the case. So the research is just coming in, and it's confirming what parents and teachers have been recognizing for about the last 5 years, that multitasking, because of the advent of the smartphone especially, is really training us to have an attention deficit by responding to every incoming stimulation, every ping, every chirp of the inbox is as important as the annual report that you're working on, or the meditation that you're trying to do, or something like that. And so one of the things that we are losing in people, heavy multitaskers, is the ability to create a hierarchy of importance in information and tasks. So everything just gets leveled to whatever is happening right now gets my attention. So the beauty of the Shamatha practice, or one of the beauties of Shamatha practice, is that anybody can do it, and anybody can immerse themselves in it. You don't have to pledge allegiance to a Buddhist creed. You don't have to adopt a particular worldview. All you have to do is basically run experiments. So this is what the Buddha was doing, was proposing experimental hypotheses and then inviting all of us as meditators to run the experiments and then to check our results against other people who are doing the same experiments and seeing how the results of my experiment compare with what other people are doing. So the thing that many people like about Shamatha practice is that it's so experiential. What counts is the truth of your own experience. And this is what a lot of people really appreciate also about the Vipassana practice, because it's the same thing. You start out with the fundamentals of Shamatha, meaning that you have developed some facsimile of samadhi, meaning very stable attention. And then you do what, you run the experiments that a lot of us have been doing analytically about what is, are these things permanent or impermanent? Is there a self or no self? And instead of this being just a matter of conceptual reasoning and logic and debate, we are going to, over the course of this coming weekend, run experiments on that, and you are going to have the truth of your own experience to rely on in these, whether things are permanent or impermanent. And it's not just a generalization. You're looking at particular phenomena and checking that out. So it becomes very, very powerful. It's a lot different than just adopting a dogma, because this is exactly what the Buddha cautioned against and told us not to do. What he said is that we should run experiments and prove these things for ourselves, and that what really counted was the truth of our own experience. So there are a lot of reasons that, and a lot of benefits that those of you who have been practicing Shamatha for a year or so now may have already discovered, and a lot of reasons that people would get into this practice if they haven't. My bold prediction is that, I was saying 5 years. Maybe that's still the case. So I think, so it might as well be bold and say within 5 years, there will be more people meditating than are doing yoga. And it makes perfect sense, because a large part of the population that is interested in yoga is aging and is getting injured, and but a lot of people will be getting into meditation for the same reason that most people of the 8 million people in North America that are doing some form of yoga now are doing it. So you could say of those 8 million people, 7 million, maybe more than that, are doing it for health benefits, health and fitness. And it'll be the same for yoga. When in 5 years there are 15 million people that are meditating, they will be doing it for health reasons. And so the research is pretty clear, about what the health benefits are. Everything from reducing hypertension to improving outcomes of heart surgery to, very important adjunct to treatments in depression and anxiety, etc. So there's just a lot of very encouraging data about that now. And one of the interesting things that I have discovered since I was here last time was that when I was doing a survey of this research on the medical benefits of meditation, was I discovered something on the National Institute of Health website in the United States. And this was there were dozens and dozens and dozens, many dozens of research projects on the health benefits. But the one that really intrigued me was a global survey of all the research of 10 years and what the what that all of these were pointing to. And it really highlighted one of these studies in particular, and that was this phenomena of cortical thinning. So as we age, there's just this thinning of the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And this is associated with a loss of memory, onset of dementia, and that it's thought, it's not, hasn't been proven, but it's believed that that cortical thinning may be, associated with all of these symptoms of aging and the onset of dementia. So it was very interesting me to, after seeing that, to see another study that said that in the United States, that more money was being spent in the healthcare system on the treatment of dementia than on the treatment of cancer and heart disease. So this was the number one area of spending in the whole healthcare economy. So it's probably not that much different in Canada. So the other, then going back to the first study, cortical thinning and the relationship of cortical thinning then to this largest area of expenditure in the healthcare system. This type of shamatha meditation, basically the genre of mindfulness meditation, was the only thing in all of medical literature that was shown to not only slow cortical thinning, not only to stop it, but the only thing that has been shown to actually promote cortical thickening.
Wow.
And so when the insurance companies and the government policymakers really discover this, and this is an article that I should be writing, you're going to see people coming to your meditation classes with a doctor's prescription. Because this is it's going to be a big matter of social policy to do something about, for one, attention deficit, and then about dementia. And shamatha meditation is something that can do both of those. So lots of reasons that you can feel good about getting into this practice or continuing your practice. But the one thing, is that it's not the health benefits that is the reason that this practice has been around for 2,500 years and has been developed and perfected really over the course of 100 generations. And the reason that it has lasted is because this developing stable, vivid attention is the platform for all of your other meditations. So if you have an aspiration of opening your heart, for instance, and seeing how your mind, your perception of the world creates the world in every moment of perception, you need to develop shamatha in order to do that. So that's not just an opinion of me or somebody who has devoted their life to developing shamatha. This is the opinion of those who have actually succeeded at all the practices that we're hoping to. So for instance, Master Shantideva in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life has this to say, quote, "The omniscient one declared as useless all recitation and austerities that are done with a distracted or dull mind, even if practiced for a long time." Pabanka Rinpoche, who a lot of people think, or some people will think that would not place much stock in the type of shamatha that we're teaching here, had this to say: "Without quiescence, practitioners would not be able to generate any of the great realizations that are gained by meditation, such as the realization of emptiness that is taught in the Sutrayana tradition, or the realizations of the generation and completion stages that are taught in the Tantrayana traditions." So just, in there I could summon up another 20 or so of the great masters that we all revere that say the same thing. Basically, you're not going to make the kind of progress that you're hoping for if you don't start at the beginning and create a good foundation for all of these other practices. And so this is what the Dalai Lama has recognized also, and laments the fact that there are few people that are running the entire course, because a lot of traditions and a lot of practitioners have just been seduced by some of the, other practices that are supposed to be depending on shamatha. So for instance, even analysis. So Pabanka Rinpoche says that even your analytical meditations aren't going to succeed if you don't have a foundation of stable, and I'll just use the term vivid meditation. And then certainly that's the case with Tantra. And there are many, many examples in my own personal experience of people who have just jumped to the end of the game and expected great results from doing that without having laid a sufficient foundation to get to that point. As Jason Kappa says in the quiescence section of the Lamrim Chenmo, until you develop shamatha, you don't have a mind, your mind has you. So this is, let's just do a 3-minute meditation right now to gather some baseline data and to see whether we have a mind or our mind has us. So without any other instruction, all you do is just pay attention. Just sit still and pay attention to your experience for 3 minutes. I can tell this has been a Gothica clock. So this is an introduction to what you are going to be dealing with for your entire meditation career. You know, is this, so one of the things that you may have noticed in that brief meditation is exactly how long 3 minutes is. It's really, you know, you can do a lot in 3 minutes. And a lot of what we do in 3 minutes is just to think about the past, or to obsess about the past, or to fantasize about the future. So this is, you know, anybody experience any distraction from the present moment and thinking about, you know, what you were doing earlier today or what you might be doing later tonight? This is, you know, is this having a mind? Do we have a mind, or does our mind have us? One of the things that this is what I call the ruminating mind. So rumination is, I think, technically in psychology, you know, thinking about the past, you know, cognitive fusion with the past. And so I'm just going to use this term, the ruminating mind, to talk about, to denote both the fantasies of the future and obsessive or memories of the past. You know, so it's, what you notice is that when you begin to really pay attention to what's going on moment to moment in your mind, is exactly how much of our awareness is taken up with that, either the past or the future, and is not paying attention to what the world is presenting to us in the present moment. So it seems often that this ruminating mind presents itself as a narrator. And it's interesting to me anyway, just how much of my experience is verbal and lingual. And it's as if there's a narrator who is describing my present moment of experience to me, or describing a memory of the past, or, you know, there are images and all of that also, but a lot of it is just a description of the sunset that I'm watching, and comparing it, telling a story about how that is different from the one that I saw in Mexico, or from 17,000 feet in Ladakh or something, you know, and which one do I like better? And then, oh, what do you know, what started out as a big red ball has just slipped below the horizon, and I didn't even notice it. I wasn't present for it. So this is the reason that the great masters would say that this is such an important skill to develop, is really brought home by a brief experience at Tabo Monastery in Spiti, where I was in this area of the Himalayas for 3.5 months, this summer and fall. So Tabo is this very remote monastery, 1,000 years old, that was built by the great translator Rinchen Zangpo. And it's said to be the Dalai Lama's favorite monastery in the world. And in fact, he has done Kala Chakra twice there. Maybe the only place that he's ever done Kala Chakra twice. And there's a big, and it's on the temples there are on the World Heritage site, or listing. And so one of the temples is this extraordinary Kala Chakra Tantric temple, where all of the deities of the Kala Chakra mandala are not just tankas on the wall, but they're life-size sculptures that are hanging in space around you. It's absolutely extraordinary. So you know exactly what the kind of practices that have been going on in this temple for 1,000 years are. And interestingly, outside the door, the entrance there, is not the Wheel of Life, but it's the poster that you have on the back wall there, the stages of meditation, the Master Kamala Shila's 9 stages of meditation. So this is a very explicit message to all the tantric practitioners that enter this incredible sanctuary, that this is, you know, don't even bother to come in if you aren't familiar with what this means. You know, the 9 stages that are described in the ascent up the mountain there. So in order to, now that we recognize what our default state of mind is, this obsessive compulsive delusional narrator who is continually telling me stories of the past and the future, how do we go about dealing with that in order to be available to what the world presents to us in the present moment? So we need a strategy that is based on one basic fact of the mind and a corollary. So that basic fact is that the mind can only pay attention to one thing at a time. And so what we're going to do then is use that basic fact and choose an object for the mind to focus on. The corollary of that is that the untrained mind, and you have to emphasize that, the untrained mind abhors a vacuum. And so if you lose your focus on your chosen object, in rushes the ruminating mind again to fill that vacuum. This term mindfulness is a term that you hear a lot in our culture now, and this has become, mindfulness is becoming very chic, and this is, on its way to becoming the new yoga. But in the context of shamatha, it means something very specific, which is a little bit different than what vipassana means by mindfulness, which usually indicates open, choiceless awareness. But in the context of shamatha, the Buddha was very clear that mindfulness is your active, present moment of attention focused on a chosen object. So this is, we're using the strategy based on the fact that the mind can only hold one thing in attention at a time. What we are going to do is to choose the object, and then we are going to cultivate mindfulness to sustain a flow of attention on our chosen object. So mindfulness is one of 2 crucial skills that we have to develop in order to make progress through the 9 stages of shamatha that Master Kamalashila described, which begins with the basic ability of being able to locate your object, to find your object, and to keep your attention on your chosen object for just a few seconds. And the path then of shamatha leads through the 9th stage, where you're able to maintain your focus on your chosen object effortlessly with perfect equanimity, meaning that you, without the slightest subtle excitation or the slightest subtle dullness, for about 4 hours. So to get from 1 to 9, there are really 2 basic qualities that we need to develop, or 2 basic skills that we're going to be honing. And that is, the first of those is mindfulness, which is sustaining the flow of attention on our chosen object. And then the other is sometimes translated as, Geshe Michael translates it as watchfulness. It's often translated also as introspection. And then later, we come to realize why the thinking of it as introspective awareness is really helpful, and an apt description of it. So the watchfulness, we'll discuss the evolution of watchfulness and why that's important, the evolution of that skill of watchfulness as we progress through the night. But you could say that watchfulness is a corner of your mind that is watching the quality of your mindfulness. And what it's watching for is 2 what are typically called faults of your attention. or problems. And so I really like this, the basic analogy that Geshe Michael uses of driving down a road. And so you could say, as we're driving down a 2-lane road, you know that even out in Saskatchewan, on your way to Saskatoon or something, or Manitoba, and you can see a straight line all the way to the horizon. If you were just to lock the steering wheel in position, have you tried that? Or you're from Manitoba?
No, obviously she's from.
No, I love it.
Yeah, but we really like the
Yeah,
road.
well, I grew up on the Great Plains also, so I know that if you just, and you can just see a straight line. Surveyor was, took one point here, and his next shot was the horizon. But if you were to just lock the steering wheel in position, you would end up off the road, right? So to stay on the road, even in your lane on a straight road, you're continually making micro adjustments, right? Little to the left, little to the right, and you're just continually doing that. In a straight line, you can be whistling while you're doing it. But in this analogy, then, you drive on the right side of the road here, right? Yeah, okay. I was really confused when I came back from India and then Singapore, and I did this workshop in prison in Nevada 2 weekends ago, and I got it backwards. So I drove, here we drive on the left side of the road, and they were going, "What? Where are you from? Have things changed since we've been put away?" Is that part of the Republican thing? So we drive on the right side of the road, and so you could say that these two problems then, the faults of dullness, so the fault of dullness is in the right ditch, and excitation is off in the left ditch. And so what we're trying to do is to stay on the road, and that means staying out of the two ditches. So this is what watchfulness, we'll just call it that now, watchfulness, is alerting us whether we have gone into the ditch. Either we have become drowsy, or we have lost our object and gone off in excitation. And we'll talk about the techniques for that. The first technique in developing that, we have to really discover the essential. How do you go about preventing yourself from flying off with every fantasy that comes by, or every memory that comes by, which is what we do all day long, and we can actively cultivate that as a distracting, as pleasure. I'm going to think about the past, and I'm going to think about the future. Oh, wouldn't that be great? And that was so great. So the one thing that I have tried, and most meditators have tried and given up on because it's just painful, is what I think of as concentration. So concentration really refers to the wrinkled brow, right, or the furrowed brow. You are going to choose an object, and then you're going to focus on it, And it feels like, to me, that concentration feels like an isometric exercise, where you're pushing against the wall, and until your arm starts to tremble, and that's developing strength. That's what Charles Atlas was teaching in the 1950s, isotonic toning or something. But this is what that connotes to me, that you're just going to do a mental isometric, and furrow your brow until you fatigue yourself, and then take a break, and then come back 2 days later when you've rested, and try it again for 30 seconds. And then eventually you're going to, get somewhere. Well, nobody ever gets anywhere like that, because, what happens is that people who have tried that, been instructed to do that, just give up because it's no fun and it's just fatiguing. And after a while, if you're not getting anywhere, you're going to just decide to go skiing. You know, do something that is more fun, because there's probably, you know, more reward in it also. So the fundamental fact is that, so I call this the strict dad approach, right? So you can try that, the strict dad approach, and that is, shut up, mind. I'm sick and tired of this rumination about the past and the future. Just shut up and leave me in peace. You know, so that's like, you know, when you were a kid, when your dad tried that on you, did that work? Or if you're a parent and you try that on your children, does that work? And it didn't work for you or them, and it doesn't work for you and your mind also. We'll just use those terms now, you and your mind. Tomorrow, we'll, you know, discover the illusion of that. But so the fundamental fact is that the base of all concentration, of the skill of developing focused attention, is relaxation. And so this is something that it's an anomalous form of attention that only meditators and probably sports psychologists concern themselves with. You know, the coach knows that the difference between the gold medal in figure skating and not even making the team is the ability to remain relaxed and vividly present at the same time, right? Tension and you know, having a conceptual relationship with your routine is, you know, you're going to remain on the junior Olympics team forever, or, you know, and then, or for not forever, because, you know, you have one shot at it, and then you go become an accountant. So it's that deep relaxation. What we are going to be, the type of attention that we are cultivating here is the anomalous form in which the more deeply you relax, the more vivid your attention becomes. So in our global 2013 culture, we probably need to take some remedial steps to relax ourselves, to really develop the skill of relaxation. Because our culture is all about stimulation, 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 right? It's all, we are one pleasure after another on the hedonic treadmill, as Alan Wallace calls it. And you are just grasping at things, you know, as they come by, you know, and that one bores you, so you grab for another one on the right, and you have possessed that one for a short time, and that bores you, then you discard it and grab another one. So this is what we think of as, you know, entertaining ourselves, is just constant hedonic stimulation. So our culture is training us on, you know, and this is part of the attention deficit also. You know, we just are constantly seeking novel stimulation. So we need to step off that hedonic treadmill and then do a little remedial relaxation. So we can do, so relaxation is not in itself an unknown thing to us. You know, it shouldn't be. But it, you know, for some people, that in itself is a big issue. For these prisoners at Warm Springs in Nevada, that was one of the big issues for them. They were just so happy to learn some relaxation techniques because they're constantly hyper-vigilant for being jumped. And I get the same story from Brandy, who's teaching these techniques, Shamatha techniques, at a prison in Sacramento. That this is one of the things that the prisoners, the inmates, really appreciate most, is just learning to relax. So we relax every night before we go to sleep. You know, we deeply relax. And so that's not a big deal. And it's not that we don't have clarity of as a quality, or this brightness of our attention also, because we feel and experience this brightness of attention every time we're really engaged with some task that we're doing. You know, when you're skiing or even watching a television program, or you walk into a casino in Reno, or you know, it's just flashing lights, music. It's all about getting your attention, and so your mind is very bright and clear. So, what is unique though is having deep relaxation and maintaining your clarity at the same time. So we have trained ourselves that because of perhaps the only time that we do deeply relax during our day is in the moments after we put our head on the pillow and we are trying to deeply relax so that we can fall asleep. We have trained ourselves to associate deep relaxation with dullness, with drowsiness, and with falling asleep. So that's the first thing that we need to break, is that association, because the foundation of all of your ability to focus and to develop stable attention is based on relaxation. If you are falling asleep every time you deeply relaxed, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be in the right ditch of dullness and drowsiness. So this right ditch is experienced as a contraction of your attention. So it's as if your attention is withdrawing into itself. And this you could say you can think of this as a radio station. And if you are headed from here out to Saskatoon, and you tune your radio station to 91.5 and FM, and let's say that is, you really like jazz or something, and it's a jazz station that you're tuning to for the long drive to Saskatoon. Well, what happens? You get 50 miles outside of Vancouver, and all of a sudden the jazz station is replaced by country western or something. And let's just say that is not what you like, or not your choice. That's not your first choice. No, I'm sorry. We're going the wrong direction here. We're talking about dullness now. So dullness, it's not that case. So dullness, you're driving to Saskatoon, and you get 50 miles, let's say 100 miles kilometers outside of Vancouver, and all of a sudden the radio station fades out altogether. There's no signal, whatever. So this is like coarse dullness. There are, in these two ditches of dullness and excitation, each of those has 3 grades: coarse, medium, and subtle, of describing dullness and excitation. So coarse dullness is like the radio station fading out altogether on your way to Saskatoon, and it's not replaced by anything. This is like your attention just collapsing into itself in dullness, coarse dullness. So this is what this is what watchfulness is going to alert us for at the very beginning, is, am I beginning to lose the signal as my attention contracts into itself? Now the Buddha described 4 different asana positions in which you can meditate. And those of you who have done the 17 gatakas, or sometimes even 20 gatakas in a day. A gataka is a 24-minute meditation session. So if we are going to do a little inflation, we'll use the nominal, say a half hour, you include the 6-minute break as part of our meditation. And so that would be 10 hours of meditating, so between 8.5 and 10 hours of meditating a day. And so that it's, you're not going to be sitting in lotus position or even siddhasana for that length of time and enjoy 8 hours or 10 hours of meditation a day. So it's really helpful, and we're really glad that the Buddha gave us 4 different choices that we can use to meditate in. The first one is the seated position, and that's some of you are seated on the floor and some of you are seated in chairs. So that's the seated position. Another is the walking meditation position, which is a favorite of many people in retreat and a very powerful form of meditation. It's not taking a break from meditation by any means. You can accomplish everything generally in walking that you can in sitting, and you can do some things in walking meditation that are very difficult to do in seated position. So that's the second, is walking. Then there is standing meditation. And this one is interesting to me, that over the course of many retreats now, this has become a much more important position for people. And it's interesting that I didn't ever promote it, I just described it, and then people just started doing it, and then they started liking it, and then doing it a lot. And even in workshops now, after describing it, I have sometimes 3 or 4 people that will be doing a standing meditation. And this one, and so you are basically just doing this in Tadasana, mountain pose. And that's a very powerful asana position, especially as an antidote to coarse dullness. And so this one, so that's the third, and then the fourth is the really heretical one, and everybody's favorite heresy, which is the supine position, or Shavasana. And I can remember, my first meditation teachers long ago said, never try to meditate in Shavasana because you're training yourself to dullness. And that's because of this habitual association. All of you yoga teachers know that it's not uncommon for people to start snoring in this position, because it is deeply, deeply relaxed. So of these 4